In my previous video, I told you how I use FDF or FZF. Sorry, I'm drunk. How I use it to get files and directories and jump to directories and open files in NeoVim specifically, but overall my editor. But a big part of FZF, at least for me, is also searching history and doing stuff with commands that I already executed in the past. So I actually did something today and yesterday, and you might be wondering why I'm drunk. Well, it's because it took that much trouble trying to figure out how to do it. Let's go to my shell, and now if I press Ctrl R, I get a list of all of my recent commands. So let's search for something like get status. As you can see, it searches because it's FZF. And when I press enter, that command ends up being in my command buffer, which is apparently how it's called. And then obviously I can change it however I want, do anything, even do it like this. And then when I decide to, I can execute it. And I get the output of get status. So if we try to look at history, like the usual history, as you can see, there is no special command that get executed here. It's just the command that we got here. So obviously I did some commands to get that command picker from the history, yet it doesn't show up here. So this kind of behavior was something that I was craving for, truly. I wanted to be able to search for a command, change it, and execute it all on a single line without changing how it's appeared in history. The reason why I like abbreviations so much is because at the end of the day, they become what they actually are, instead of being some random aliases that you wouldn't know about. So Code Insiders is the special command from VS Code, but specifically the Insiders version, which I recently started using. And if I had it aliased, like if I had code, the normal command for VS Code, aliased to Code Insiders, you wouldn't know it. But since it's an abbreviation, you actually do. And I wanted to use the same idea for my history searcher as well. So to accomplish this kind of behavior, I tried a bunch of stuff and a lot of syntax finagling, a lot of print-z, which it should work in the actual shell. Let's print -z and then something. Yeah, and as you can see, that puts something in the next command buffer, and what you currently see here is called the command buffer apparently. So I tried to use that, but twice. So interesting that control backspace doesn't work, but it doesn't matter. I tried to use print-z twice to, first of all, make this command the actual command of something unchanged, and then make the next one the actual something, which is literal. Hard to explain really, but I was struggling a lot. But turns out there are two variables that you should think about: lbuffer and rbuffer. Lbuffer is what is to the left of your cursor. So you can see my command buffer. This whole string is the value of lbuffer, so everything to the left of the cursor. But if I type some more stuff, right now my cursor is here, and R buffer will contain this string. The L buffer will contain this string and I think a space. So we can use that to assign it to whatever we want to make the output of some command or some function become the current command buffer. So become the current what we typed in, essentially. And that's exactly what I do. I evaluate this entire command and put it as the thing that is inside of my command buffer. So it's a lot of magic here, but I'm going to explain the gist of it. History shows history. Tag reverses input. This whole thing, hold up. Any minute now. Here we go. Awk, or at least this specific thing, only gives us all the data starting from the fourth column. When we run history, usually you get this, the number of the command, then the date of the command, then the time of the command. And I don't really need that when I'm searching for a command, so I need everything starting from the fourth column up to the end. So that's what this command does. Then we use sed to remove all the trailing and leading white space. And then we use this command, which I know what it does, obviously. Oh my god, I'm so drunk that I'm so much worse at highlighting stuff with Vim. Oh my god, I've never been this bad. Give me a moment. Here we go. This command removes all the duplicates by using a somewhat inefficient method of going through each line and only printing each line once. And the reason why we need sed first is that, say, git status and nothing and git status space will be considered different commands by awk, by this thing at the very least. So they will be displayed twice even though it's pretty much the same command. And then we pass all of that input into FZF for us to pick. So what we end up picking becomes our current command buffer. And then we can edit it or just execute the command that we got without actually occupying the command that we had beforehand, which we would have to with print-z. So that's how it works, but I don't just call this function, I actually have a hotkey. And the reason why RP has an underscore before it is because it actually doesn't work if you call it explicitly, so let's try to. You can pick, sure, but it doesn't do shit. So this thing only works with a hotkey, and I think it makes sense to have a hotkey for. So what does this line do? To have bind key to some function, we have to define that function as a ZLE widget. We can't just do a function because I got an error saying no such widget called underscore RP. So we have to actually define it as a widget. We do it through this line, ZLE dash capital N and then the name of your function. And this applies to anything else. As you can see, I have more here. You just specify the name of the function here, and then you can use bind key with it. It's probably not the best method to do this, but that's what I do because I figured it out this way. So if you know a better way to do it, please leave it in the comments. I'm sure not only me, but also the other people watching would be interested in that. Just keep in mind that you don't start out knowing all the information. So here we have the widget and then the hotkey. And now when I press Ctrl R, at the very least in insert mode, which you probably won't have if you don't have vi mode turned on. And then let's say I want bad cat git ignore less dash r, sure. And here I have my command by pressing Ctrl R and doing stuff. Why not just use the usual Ctrl R, the Emacs mode, so your default Z shell mode? Well, at the very least, I don't have it. I use vi mode in Z shell, meaning the way to search history for me is using slash or question mark. And then I can use something like awk and start searching. But to go through all the commands that match that awk, I have to just press N to go through commands until I find something, which is very naturally very annoying when I could instead, oh, I didn't mean to do it this fast. I can type in awk and immediately see a bunch of results from which I can understand that, oh, I actually want this. So let me type something in that, and now I finally got it very easily, instead of just mindlessly pressing N a lot of times. So that's why I find this very useful. And that's pretty much the case with Ctrl R on your default Z shell, I'm pretty sure. So I found this very useful. But this video doesn't only contain the history searcher, because I also changed some things from the previous video. So I used to have essentially aliases like CC, CF, CG, and so on to change directory to a specified directory, and also open files in NeoVim, but in the editor. Could be anything you want, really. But I found a better way of doing the same thing. The functions, the 4 functions that you see here, I think are better overall. Let me explain why. So first of all, we get important dir and get important file. I provide a bunch of directories that I often go through. So programming, lib, pictures, and audio. These are the most likely to be useful to me, and same thing goes for files. And now I'm not restricted to changing directory to the directory that I find, and also not restricted in opening the file in NeoVim. I can just get the file. Let me show off how I actually use this. I do V to mean NeoVim. Once again, abbreviations are great because you can see that I mean NeoVim, not just some random V alias, which you could guess what does, but it's still easier for you to understand what I'm doing here. So now I press Ctrl A. I set that hotkey, but you can set it to anything you want. And now I get to pick all the files in the current directory. It's actually not what I was teaching you, showing you rather. Ctrl F to pick a file from those directories that I listed. You know what? It's really funny to hear your voice being slowed down by being drunk, especially when you record a video, but whatever. Say I want toolkit.lsn, toolkit and .solution. Once again, a big part of FZF and why it's great. I couldn't be bothered to type in toolkit, but I knew that it ended in .solution, and here I am, very precise on what I actually want. Enter, and that file just gets pasted into my command buffer. So essentially, whenever I need a file, I can just use FZF to get that file onto my command buffer and use it literally anywhere. It does not matter, I can use it anywhere. It doesn't have to be NeoVim, it could be something like badcat to get the output in less and also print it to standard output, which is actually something that I hate. So same thing goes for directories. I can cd, or I don't even have to type in cd, but Control G, and I can also pick some things that I want. So let's say main files.image, and then when I press it, I go there. It's a setting in Z shell that should be on by default. I don't think I set it myself. So now I have the ability to get to any file or folder in a very nice, reachable way without being restricted to only opening it or only CDing to that directory. I can use it in any command. Do you understand the power of that? I still don't, but I'm hella excited. So this is the power of FZF. And I also made hotkeys too. Control A just picks a file in the current directory and all the subdirectories, and Control S picks a directory instead and all the subdirectories. So that is just plain incredible. And once again, you can decide your own hotkeys that you pick. But this is the code, essentially. You have to specify the widget that you create with the name of the function, and then you specify the hotkey and you name that function. And by the way, just like another hotkey, you use the caret symbol to mean control. But what's actually in here? Gets important dir, so something that I use to browse all the subdirectories of my most useful ones. First of all, we fill the command buffer, or rather only the one to the right of our cursor, with the directory that we picked, and then, the most important thing, we move our cursor to the end of the line. That way you don't have to do it yourself, it's done automatically. Same thing goes for files, and fpick, it's a function that I wrote that I showed off in my previous video. I do still recommend watching it because it gives some more insight that I think is useful. And then we do a similar thing for get current dir. So get a directory that is a subdirectory of the current one. We once again fill the buffer to the right and move our cursor to the end. But what is this sed doing? Let's actually try it out, or rather we already did. Okay, maybe I was using Control F then, so let's neovim, Control A, and pick something like program CS. The path that you currently see here is /, meaning the current directory, and from it, test project /program CS. But when you press enter, that is so funny because maybe I haven't updated my Z shell to make that change. It's kind of recent. So yeah, that's indeed the case. So not sure why it leaves a closing bracket. Let's ignore that. Maybe I have already fixed it until the end, until this video releases. So the current repository, so /, gets replaced by the actual full path, in which case it was mntc programming CS proj test solution. Why is this useful? Well, let's actually run it and go away. Matter of fact, what if I go away completely? Oh, what was that command that I just executed? Well, I can still execute it just the same. even though I'm in a completely different directory, and the relative path would not work, but the absolute path obviously does. So this set command replaces dot slash with um, the actual working directory to make it appear very nicely in history. So when you search for it, you can just run it without having to move to some specific directory first. Same thing goes for current file. It's pretty much the same, just for files. Say you do something like, oh, well, we are already at home, so that's quite nice. Let's neovim, control A. I want init, or rather, .lua. I guess there are a lot of files. Oh, wait, no, I am stupid. Should do it like that. Init. It's not actually what I'm looking for. Well, actually, oh, let's try to find the best way to go there. Init, I know because it's exact, and you can use the signal quote to search for exact, because by default it's a fuzzy search. And then .lua percent, oh wait, $sign to mean the end of the string. And somewhere in here, supposedly, you should see the usual init.lua file. But oh well, let's go there. Now, this path will end up in your history, meaning any other time that you need to get to this file, you can just search history instead and get to this file very easily, instead of being reliant on the relative directory. So this is how I currently use FZF, and this is already stupidly useful. But the coolest part about FZF is that you can pipe any amount of lines into it for you to pick between them, and then you can do anything that you want with that line that you picked, or with that line Z that you picked. Because if you use FZF with -m, you can actually pick multiple files by using tab or shift tab. So this just goes to show how great FZF is at things that you specifically might be interested in doing for yourself. So something like get important dir, get important file, and all that, I mean, I find it hard to believe, but maybe it's really only useful to me or not that many people. But what's cool about FZF is the fact that you get to decide how you want to use it. Maybe there's some very specific thing that you do very often and always need to pick between multiple things. Well, you can just write a function or an alias that does exactly that. And that is just incredible in my opinion. So, if you find that incredible as well, press a like, type some comment, maybe have a question or a suggestion. Definitely subscribe so you don't miss my content, but most importantly, stay fresh, cheese bags. And I'll see you in my next video. Not bye yet, I just want to say that I missed recording drunk. Such a weird feeling, but it's so cool. And also, thank you so much for watching my videos and actually being interested in them. It feels very nice when people find my videos useful. Comments like, oh my god, thank you so much, or oh my god, this is actually so useful, I'm gonna use it in my specific thing, just feels so good. So thank you a lot. If you want to support my content, the #1 method to do it is leaving a comment. Views are nice, don't get me wrong, so are likes and other stuff like click-through rate that's cool to look at, but the coolest thing for me are comments. I'm interested in seeing them, I'm interested in replying to them. Maybe you found a really interesting or useful, at least to you, way to use FZF or anything really uh, that I mentioned in my video. Please share it. Like, I'm actually interested. So, seeing your comments where you share your experience always cheers me up. So, bye!